Hi, Kristin Woodson here, Customer Success Manager with DataSet. This is our first video in our DataSet Cost Management Best Practices series. This video, we're going to focus on the first steps in cost management, which will be evaluating your log volume. And this will really help in getting a better picture of, what log volumes you have coming into DataSet, along with being able to isolate any logs that you may not wish to upload into DataSet. We'll talk about evaluating log volumes by a custom field, and I'll also walk you through how to set log size exceeded notifications. This will help you set up an email alert to be notified when your logs have exceeded a specific threshold. Before we dive into evaluating log volumes, I wanted to show you how DataSet tracks your log volume in the DataSet metalog. So in my account here, I'm searching for tag equals log volume and metric equals log bytes. What comes up are these lines from the DataSet metalog that are tracking log volume broken down by log source. The number of bytes is captured in the value fields. And some of these log lines have server host and log file values, and Kubernetes have a lot more metadata, including the Kubernetes cluster and the Kubernetes controller. I mention this because we can use these 4 fields to define log categories in the cost management tool: server host, log file, K8's controller, and K8's cluster. We do have a separate video on the cost management tool, so please feel free to watch that when looking at cost management. But again, I just wanted you to get an idea of, how DataSet's tracking your volumes in our metalogs. So the first step we want to do here is evaluate our log volumes. Under dashboards, you have a dashboard called log volume. This shows the log volume over time. Right now I'm set to the last 4 hours, so I'm actually just going to switch this to the last 24 hours. And this is going to give me that bigger picture view of my log volume over time. So here's my total gigabytes per day, and this is the average over 24 hours. Here I've got my log volume by server host, and it's also breaking it down by log, which would be really useful to help isolate which logs have the most volume coming in. So in this case, we can see my DHCP log has the highest volumes coming in, and my containerd core DNS log has the lowest amount of volumes coming in. Again, just allowing me to really be able to get an idea of which logs are ingesting the most data. There is also a log volume by K8's controller. In my example, I actually don't have any logs, K8's logs here, so this is why nothing is coming up. But if you are using Kubernetes, you can also look by K8's controller as well. There is also a knowledge base article that talks about evaluating log volume in greater depth. I will put a link to this in the description underneath the video so that you can always reference this if needed. And one other thing to note here is if you are an enterprise account and you have multiple teams, the best way to check your log volume is you'll have a dashboard called log volume by team. If you don't have this set up, you can always reach out to our support team and they can help you get this set up. Although most folks should have this set up if you do have access to teams. And here we can see the average daily log volume for whatever time period is set. And again, we've set it to 24 hours. I can see my total log volume, but I can also see the volume broken out by team, which will give a really good idea of which teams have the highest log volumes as well. So we had a look at our log volume dashboard that displays log volume by host and K8's cluster if applicable. We also took a look at our log volumes by teams if applicable. And these are all really convenient for monitoring ongoing log volume. However, as log volume increases, a more specific solution may be required. So what we're going to walk through here is how to break down log volume by a custom field. I'm doing this through a Power Query To get to the Power Query screen, you click on Search and Power Queries. And I have already created a Power Query here. I want to break down my log volume by my custom field. In this case, it's going to be by server IP. And I'm using a join here, which will link two otherwise unrelated logs and really enable us to evaluate the server IP and host values where the log volumes originated. Now, this example is designed to showcase how to use Power Queries for spot analysis. You might wish to modify this for your specific requirements. So just keep in mind you can modify this. If we take a look at the first part of our join, you'll see what we're doing here is we've got our tag equals log volume and metric equals log bytes. So we're pulling in the data from our metadata logs in terms of those log volumes. Now, what I wanted to also do is, look up and associate every server host with an IP. So here you can see my IPs equal my server IP. And this way we can then enrich the server logs with the server IP information. I'm also joining the queries on host. And then I'm grouping by my megabytes. So my group or my megabytes is equaling the sum grouped by megabytes, by server IP, and host, and then I'm sorting by my megabyte. A word of caution, when we're running this join, the method assumes that each value of the server host and or K8's deployment maps to exactly one value of the custom field. So in this example, if we want to confirm that this many-to-one relationship exists between our server host and server IP, there's another query that I need to run. And basically what we're doing here is we're just saying, okay, where server IP equals all, I want to group the uniques. And we're doing an estimate distinct on server IP by server host, and then filtering where the uniques is greater than 1. So if this query were to return any values, the join query that we're using previously, this join query here, that basically would not produce reliable results. So we just want to double check and make sure. We just want to confirm that this many-to-one relationship exists. In our case, we are looking at server IP as the custom field. So we want to make sure it exists between server host and server IP. And if I hit search here, I'm not getting anything back. So I can rest assured that my query is reliable. Before we talk about setting notifications for evaluating log volumes, something to quickly keep in mind is we do also have an KB article on how to break down log volume by custom field. This does have the examples that I used here today for my join, and as well as checking to confirm that my custom field has a many-to-one relationship between the custom field and server host. If you did want to go in and customize, what you could do is copy and paste the information from the KB article, and it's going to be similar to my join here. And what you do then is just replace wherever I have server IP by that custom field that you want to use. I would make sure you also do the check. So if you change the custom field to something like IP address, I would make sure then, you want, instead of server IP all equals all, you want IP address equals all, and doing the estimate distinct instead of doing it by server IP, then you would want to do it for IP address, for example, in this case. Again, just different ways of breaking down the data. Now, if we want to go in and access our billing page to set up those alert notifications, we're just going to go under our username and billing, and I'm going to scroll down to notifications. Now this is enabled by default, so you will see this already enabled in the account. You can go in and edit the email address that is receiving the notifications, and you'll notice it says get notified if your average daily volume from the beginning of the month exceeds this percentage. And that percentage threshold can be over 100%. So the number can be adjusted if a temporary increase in log volume is expected, for example. And again, you can make any changes. When you go to make changes here, for example, if I did say that 110%, I would just click on Save Changes, and then my demo5@scalar.com email address would receive a notification if my daily log volume from the beginning of the month exceeds the 110%. And again, email notifications are just a great way to get notified if your plan is exceeding the volumes. And this can really help just in monitoring your log volumes coming in. This way, the other thing to think about too is if you're continually having overages or getting these alerts that your plan is over, then you may wish to talk to your sales representative to see about maybe increasing the plan, which may be less expensive than if you're incurring the overage charges. For customers who sign up via the website, the account owner can change the plan on the website. But if you purchase through a sales rep, then you can work with the sales rep. So again, this was just the first part of our cost management best practices. So the first steps are, evaluating log volumes, being able to set these notifications as well to be alerted when your log volumes are exceeded. One other thing to note is we do have a knowledge base article as well. And again, I'll put that in the description below this video, talking about DataSet log size exceeded notifications in greater depth. So you can always look at that later on if you'd like. And that concludes our first video in our cost management best practices series. And again, the evaluating log volumes really help you get an idea of the log volumes coming in, so you get that bigger picture view. You can see if there are any log volumes that you may want to isolate and just not upload into DataSet. But we do also have some cost management tools for you. So in our next video, we're going to take a look at each of those cost management tools. We'll get a good idea of the difference between discarding and sampling data. And we'll also take a look at some additional best practices when it comes to cost management. I look forward to seeing you in our next video, our cost management best practices video. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at support@dataset.com.